And speaking of joining, we're now joined by the Director of Athletics at Miami, Blake James, and it looks like it's a blustery 40 degrees down in South Florida by the looks of things there. Blake, how you doing, man? Where are you, by the way?
I'm doing well. I'm hiding up in Maine right now, getting a little bit of the cool weather. So it's 60 degrees, I think, outside.
Well, Packer wants to know where he can buy the Miami football hoodie. That's question number one of this interview. So if that's available at hurricanesports.com, I'll send him there. Otherwise, he's going to be hitting you up for a freebie, I think.
Well, let's try to get him to hurricanesports.com because Packer will take any freebie he can get.
Now, I'll tell you what, I don't know what's going to be said in the next hour and 45 minutes on the show, but that will be the most accurate, factual statement made in the next 90 minutes on this program. I guarantee you.
Hey, Blake, when you think of Miami and the 17-year anniversary of membership in the ACC, what's the first thing pops in your head?
Just what a great move it was for our institution. When you look at the schools that we've been able to align ourselves with from an academic, athletic perspective, and just the long-term stability and viability of our athletic program. Just credit President Shalala and Athletic Director Paul D. For having the foresight 17 years ago to make this bold step.
Blake, and I'm glad you brought up the academic part because we kind of hit on that the first 10 minutes of the show. Expansion was more than just saying, I'll take this one, and this one. I mean, it was a complex process, but it also had to be a natural fit. And I think the good thing for Miami and Virginia Tech from an ACC perspective was it was a natural fit from an athletic standpoint, obviously from an eyeball standpoint when you start talking about what television meant in the expansion process. And then as you pointed out, from an academic standpoint, it had to fit. And I think from a Miami perspective, that was a 10 on a 10 scale across the board.
Yeah, I agree. And again, at the time, ironically, I was here in Maine as working in the athletic department at that point. But looking at it from afar, I had those same thoughts, and those are the feelings that I have today. And I think it's what we've realized over the last 17 years is it was just such a great fit and really a natural move for us to be aligned with those schools, given their, again, academic desires there and positions they had to just geographically and where our competition was going to be located at and how we get our kids to those games.
Blake, you took the position 7 years ago as athletics director at Miami. What has been what's been the learning curve for you? What's the understanding now of Miami and the ACC? Is, a lot of time has passed. Miami's a vested member. It all seems to be going very well. I mean, there were 3 schools added. If you include Notre Dame's participation on the back end of this, what's the growth point been for you in the 7 years you've had the job at Coral Gables?
I think it's just realizing how difficult it is to win this league in any sport. I think if you look back and read articles at the time that we entered the league, I think there was, a lot of expectation that the ACC championship is going to be Miami against Florida State a lot of years, and that just hasn't been what's happened. And we need to get better at football, and we're working on that. But it's tough. It's tough to go on the road and win league games. All wins are great wins. I think we all know that. But I think the league has gotten significantly better over the years, and we have to be better if we're going to do what we want to do in football. And the challenge is everyone else is getting better as well.
Blake, obviously people think football immediately with expansion, especially going back 17 years. But, when to join the ACC, you also think hoops. And the job Jim Larinaga has done at Miami is nothing short of sensational. And there would be a lot of people, if you'd have asked 17 years ago, hey, Miami's going to join the ACC, will they win an ACC basketball or football championship first? If you'd have asked 100 people would have been wrong. Obviously, basketball got elevated, but also the Olympic sports. And I don't think that gets emphasized enough when we talk about expansion. If you can just go into this a little bit in terms of the big picture. Yeah, we know about football and basketball, but what about everything else in your athletic department from an ACC perspective?
Well, I think that's the real win is the everything else. Because I think if you would have looked at it, if you would have compared just Big East football, and again, a lot of things have happened since the time we left, but there probably wasn't as big of a difference in the football side of it as there was in, as we're showing now, the video baseball, our tennis programs, our track programs, everything else in terms of who we were competing against and with. I honestly believe just really elevated by making the move to the ACC. And again, just has been such a great fit for us and a win for our programs and our fans.
Blake, we've talked to several of your colleagues in the 3 weeks or so we've been back here on a regular basis. Needless to say, this has been a most unique offseason. From your standpoint, what do you think the fall will look like? How important is the next 5 or 6 weeks in this process?
I think the key right there is the next 5 or 6 weeks. And I think it's important for all of us to continue to follow the guidelines that our leaders are putting in place. Again, reminding everyone, we got to wear the mask. We need to do what we can to make sure we have a fall sports season. And that's something that I think we all have that responsibility, both individually, but then us as leaders to communicate that message out. If we want to have college football this fall, which my plan is that we will, I believe the other leaders in our league believe that is the case as we sit here today. But I think everyone is getting more nervous, and obviously we'll have continued conversations. But again, I think if we all do our part, the odds of us having a fall sports season are a lot higher than what they'd be if that wasn't the case, if we don't do what we need to do.
Blake, by the way, you need to throw in one of those masks, too, when you send me that sweatshirt. All right, just for the record, I want to get that out of the way.
You buy the sweatshirt, I'll throw in the mask for both of you.
I love it. One other issue at bay here, obviously everybody's trying to stay healthy and have a football season, which means we can have a college sports season. But name, image, and likeness is front and center. And your state just passed a law. Curious from your perspective, big picture, not only for Miami in state, but Miami from a national perspective, name, image, and likeness in your position there.
Well, again, I think it's going to be interesting to see where this all plays out. As you touched on, Florida has signed it into law. I think our leaders did a very good job of understanding some of the differences of college athletics versus the professional game and put some safeguards in place that I think make the Florida law one that will help keep the recruiting and booster involvement out of it. With that said, we can't have different laws for every single state. I do think there needs to be involvement on a national level. I know Senator Rubio introduced legislation to address it on a national issue in the Senate a couple weeks ago now. But that's something that we'll continue to obviously follow and provide our insight and feedback on what we think works. I think everyone recognizes college sports in the U.S. is the best model in the world. It's why we have young people from all over the world coming to compete at our institutions in this model. Does it need to continue to evolve? Without a doubt. I'm a firm believer that we need to create opportunities for kids to legitimately capitalize on name, image, and likeness. I think in the state of Florida, that's the direction that we've gone, but we need to do that nationally, and I'll continue to work with, whether it's Representative Shalala, who's my representative in South Florida, to the senators, to all our leadership nationally. It's just something that the college sports needs to continue to evolve. It's going to evolve. We signed it into law in California and Florida. And we'll continue to work with the leadership in Washington, D.C. to hopefully get the best system in place as possible to save the long-term viability and opportunities for young people in college athletics, because I think if some steps aren't taken, we could see real severe challenges for schools to continue to offer the amount of opportunities that they do across the board.
Blake, as a follow-up to that, how important are the conversations you're having with fellow athletic directors? I mean, I'm thinking of David Coburn at Florida State, Scott Strickland at Florida, Danny White even at UCF, Michael Kelly at USF, of the FBS football playing schools, so to speak, or Power 5 football playing schools in the state of Florida. How important are the conversations on name, image, and likeness in addition to the stuff you're having at the ACC or potential national level?
Well, again, it's ongoing conversation. You just rattled off a number of my counterparts in the state of Florida, and those are conversations that we were having in advance of the Florida legislation. Again, we signed into law name, image, and likeness legislation in the state of Florida. Now it moves to the national level. It's something that we're talking about at the ACC literally daily, and it's an important part of what the future landscape is going to look like. And it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we're educating the leaders on a national level of all the intricacies of college athletics and what are the safeguards we have to put in place. Because for me, one of the most important things is if we can get a system that allows our young people to capitalize, let's make sure they're the ones realizing the money that they've generated through their name, image, and likeness. And so, again, those are conversations that I think we have to address in terms of how do we protect young people in the agent-type relationship. And then the other piece of it, as I touched on at the start, is the booster recruiting inducement and how do we keep that out, because college athletics is different than professional leagues, and we want to keep the game at the college level clean and keep integrity involved and make it about an educational experience, not about a money-grabbing experience.
Blake, real quick, Representative Donna Shalala, of course, who was the president at the University of Miami for many, many years, I would guess now, because of her background, not only in Washington, but as the chief officer of a major university like Miami, she has a very interesting perspective on this. What's her feeling about, Congress or whoever on Capitol Hill taking name, image, and likeness and running with it so we do have that comprehensive law in this country as it relates to student athletes?
So again, in my conversation with Representative Shalala, again, she is someone who has, I'll say she's the smartest person I've ever been around. Donna is just incredibly sharp and really sees things well in advance of others, I think is one of her real strengths. And what I would say is she understands college athletics. She understands the university environment. She understands the need for us to evolve as an association. She cares genuinely about the young people who come to the institution, whether those are athletes or the general student. And I know she'll apply all those principles to putting in place, or I guess fighting to put in place the best system possible that allows young people to capitalize, at the same time protecting the collegiate model and doing what's right for college athletics and really the country in general. Because when you look at college athletics, it's something our country has a tremendous passion for, and we want to make sure we get this right. And I think that's the important piece, and it's why it's great that we have someone like Representative Shalala, who has the experience that she does in Washington, D.C., to be able to speak on a lot of the specific issues that I think will need to be addressed as we move this forward.
Blake, my last question to you is this. We got July 4th coming up. You can be down there at Miami. Beautiful beaches, awesome weather, beautiful people, one of the great spots in all the world. But yet you're wearing a sweatshirt up in Maine. So what must be happening for July 4th for a guy of your wealth and influence to be in Maine as opposed to beautiful South Florida for a holiday like July 4th?
Well, I'm not a weatherman, clearly, because I was coming here thinking it was going to be in the 80s, not in the 60s. No, obviously we spent 7 years in Maine, and for those that in the listening audience that had a chance to be here, it's a great state, especially in the summer. I'll say much more fond of being in Maine in the summer than the winter, but it's a great place. We developed great friends here, and the opportunity to come back each summer has presented itself, and my family and I like to take advantage of that, and we try to get back every year for at least a week, and just fortunate and blessed to be here. I'm just hoping the weather gets a lot nicer here in the coming days, or I have 2 sweatshirts with me. I'm going to have to make a run to a store here and get another sweatshirt.
well, if you make the run, make sure you send that one to Packer, and we'll all be good, Blake.
I'll make sure we get one coming your way.
There you go.
All right. Hey, take care. Always appreciate the time, especially while you're out of town and out of pocket. And happy anniversary to the Hurricanes, okay?
Hey, great to be with you guys. Great to be in the league. And just remind everyone, let's make sure we get the masks on. We want to have a college football season.